Galen Eagle podcast. Thank you for joining us today. This particular podcast represents the first in what I hope will be a series of several episodes that deal with computers, technology, and education. I'm Dr. David Aguilar, an associate professor of computer science at Galen University. I'm the coordinator of our computer science program. In light of our theme, I have with me a special guest today, Mr. David Alfaro, the head of the Information Technology Program at SEMJC in Corozal. And our institutions have recently entered into a partnership to offer a 4-year computer science degree through Galen, using the first 2 years of their junior college in Corozal as a starter, as well as taking any face-to-face classes at what now constitutes something of a northern campus. Our computer science degree is largely offered online, and many of our students are getting their bachelor's degrees fully online. But for students who want or need an in-class experience, we attempt to offer that to them as well, regardless of where in the country they reside. So, Mr. Alfaro, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Yeah, our theme is technology, society, and education. And I especially want to highlight the things that education has to offer us in navigating this changing world. How we, as tertiary level educators, can play a part in helping Belize in particular and the world in general to develop. So I've already spoken about who I am, and our regular viewers have seen me before. So let me ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of IT and technological education.
Yeah, sure. Definitely makes sense. Well, as you said, my name is David Alfaro, born and raised in Costa Rica. That's why my accent is a little bit different, right? But definitely very proud to be here. Very happy to share my knowledge with this beautiful country of Belize. I graduated in Costa Rica as a computer system engineer a couple of years ago. I grew in love with the Belizean beauty, and now I'm here in Belize, right? Living now for 18 years now.
Okay.
Well, to answer the question, I really love to tell my stories. Well, the story why I chose IT with my students, and basically I chose IT when I was attending primary school, and
So pretty early.
yeah, definitely. And I started to notice one day that my father came or was reaching late at home, right? So I inquired about the reason, and I think the way in how he answered changed or triggered this passion or this willing to know what IT is. And because at that time back then it was not really common to have computers. We didn't have computers at home. Terms like computers, technology, I don't know, programming, it wasn't in the map at that time.
Yeah.
And he answered, I am studying. And I asked, what are you studying? And he answered me something that changed my life. He said, well, I am talking to a computer and the computer responds. And immediately I decided I want to learn how to talk to computers.
Nice.
And well, that's basically something that really caught my attention. How can we talk to a machine? How a machine can do stuff for us, right? And that same passion, that same I don't know, questions that we have. I really want to make my students feel that passion for understanding technology and how we can use the technology to accomplish stuff that has been only in our dreams or in movies before. So I've had this passion to allow others, or let others know and actually pass my knowledge to others. So that's why I took the opportunity that Mr. Hugo offered me to teach here in SEMJC because, well, as an IT, maybe the less or the last thing we plan to have or to do is to teach, right? Because we're
Right.
looking forward for computers and that kind of life that is a little bit like a side of personal interactions. But at the end of the day, I really enjoy passing my knowledge, helping others accomplish professional goals, in this case, the IT or the technology area. So I've been loving this career for practically 15 years now.
Great. So tell us a little bit about that program. What are some of its key courses? What are the skill sets you really want your students to develop at SEMJC?
Yeah, well, as a computer system engineer, I really love like the fact that we have so much areas, a very wide spectrum. Since in CMJC or Centro Escolar Mexico Junior College, we have a technical vocational associate's degree in information technology.
Hmm.
I know it's been like questioning why information technology, why is it not computer science? But I think IT, well, it's a little bit more technical, more hands-on,
Yeah.
right? So we have decided to keep it as information technology, covering a wide spectrum of areas, like for example, PC repairing, principles of design, database management. We have networking. And one of the things that differentiate this institution from other institutions is practically that the programming section is very heavy. A part of the normal four subjects, programming one, programming two, the structures, GUI programming, we have the fundamentals of programming, and then we have two subjects specially to learn mobile development, front end and back end, and we have web development, two more subjects for that, the back end and the front end, adding
Hmm.
up to nine programming classes instead of the four that we normally find in other institutions. So we have been pushing a lot into programming, and at the end the idea is to prepare students to be injected into Belize workforce right
Hmm.
after the graduation, in case they cannot further their studies, right?
Right. And that's actually one of the things that makes SEMJC and Galen such a good fit because our program is computer science. It is heavy in programming, heavy in software development. And so when your students come to us, it's a very smooth transition because they have all that background you've given to them.
So
That's
that's nice.
Yeah. Um, so that's one of the distinct benefits of the arrangement. Can you think of any more of them that, what would you said if they can go right to the workforce if they can't further their 4-year degree, right? Of course, again, we encourage them to get that bachelor's, right? What do you think are some of the benefits of that? Maybe the challenges associated with the arrangement and the pros and cons and so on. And we can focus on both the programs, the students, or the institutions themselves. What do you think of that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really glad you're asking for that, because this collaboration is such a blessing for our students. Like between both institutions, it opens great opportunity for students to acquire higher education levels, right?
Hmm.
Just putting in context that what we were producing were professionals ready to work outside, like BTL, Smart, programming places. Well, we don't want to actually give advertisement for all the companies where they have been working, right?
Yeah.
But definitely they have been positioned out there very well, our students, and the fact that some of them want to continue studying. um, the great benefit of this collaboration is that they will be having practically the benefit of continuing studying right in-house, right? This
Yeah.
collaboration allows them to continue right from the point they left in associate's degree and go one more step,
Yep.
making them much more competitive when they are looking for a job, right? And that's something that that's a great blessing for them. Collaboration between institutions is definitely going to be a challenge, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that we have to ensure is not the coverage of content, which many institutions tend to do. What we want is to provide quality to Galen, quality to students that are able to take the challenge of the bachelor's degree and succeed, and that we can provide all that good quality of professionals so that they can graduate from Galen even much more prepared
Yeah.
for workforce.
Definitely. And, from here also, I think they get a lot of opportunities to go on for their masters and even PhDs. I encourage my students, as you say, it makes them more and more viable, right? They can get the better jobs. And even though it's true, I mean, both from your institution and mine, our students get jobs like just like that. I mean, it's really in demand, but we're always encouraging them just to go to the next level because Belize needs that. We need professionals in these areas so don't fall behind. Um,
Yes, definitely.
And speaking of which, as you said, you have what, 9 programming classes? That's a lot for a associate's degree. It's actually more than we require of a feeder institution. And so, what we've been thinking about, just kind of in house at Galen, is how we can use those extra courses they take to kind of benefit them aside from just their degree. So we're thinking about things like, if you graduate from Galen, having come from SEMJC with all these extra classes, we could do things like giving them certifications. For example, if they took like a lot of networking classes or web development, we could maybe give them a certification in addition to their bachelor's, which again looks really good on a resume, really good for employers. And so, I just kind of want to pick your brain about that as well, because again, you have more credit hours than we need for first 2 years, but we don't want any of that time or that effort that your students put in to go to waste. So I'm just kind of curious as to what you think about how we can utilize those extra credit hours that they come to us with.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as I mentioned before, this is a technical vocational program. So basically, those extra credit hours aim for like that hands-on experience, right? Having much more interaction with the components, with the
Hmm.
different areas, right? We have decided to have this much programming because we were exposed to regional hackathons in which we have been participating. We went to Miami, Puerto
Oh, great.
Rico, competing, right? And I started to notice the fact that as institutions we have been preparing students to program in black screens, right?
Mm,
The normal programming, programming one, programming two, the structure it's definitely just black screens.
yeah.
And then what the industry needs out there are persons able to work and create web systems, mobile applications for their platforms, and we were lacking that, and because of the fact that we want to create persons ready for the workforce, we decided to implement all of this stuff, right? Like for example, with networking, that we let or make the users go to the institutions, go for community outreach. The same thing for databases. What we want is the exposure to the real world, to the real life, right? So definitely, this is a new journey, right?
Yeah.
That just embark on with Galen, and this contribution really is richly matches our vision, right? Like making these students move to higher education. And as you see, this can be complemented, and there can be definitely more preparation for certifications, or even as mentioned, maybe some of the material that we can give them during this time, these extra hours can result in a specialization
Yep.
when it comes to the end of the bachelor's degree. So it can aid to one specialization when they continue furthering the studies in Galen.
That's a lot along the lines of what we were thinking as well, because we do want to offer students the opportunity to do specializations, robotics, AI, data analysis, and so on, right? And so as your courses feed into that, I mean, that just seems like a perfect transition there.
Yes.
So you mentioned that the traditional courses do seem to be a bit lacking considering the industry requirements right now. How do you feel about the current state of Belize in regards to IT and computer science in general, in terms of what like the next steps need to be to kind of get them up to speed in the rest of the world? We don't want to, Belize is a small country, but the good thing about computer science and IT is you don't need a big lab. You just need like a laptop and some often free software, and you can do amazing things with that, right? So
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is a tricky question. I love the question actually. I've always said that Belize is a jewel when it comes to test drive new technologies. Belize have all the odds in favor for experiment and implementation of the newest technologies in a
mm,
controlled environment. As you were saying, we are small, but
yeah.
you can take that as a benefit because that can be seen as a controlled environment in which we can try out stuff that for other countries is way much more complicated and much more investment required to do all of those things. So what we just need is the vision, and most importantly, the visionaries to put in place the action plan. And I think here is where the academia steps in hand with the industry, what
Okay.
the industry is needing. So technologically speaking, Belize has grown exponentially. You have seen it, I have seen it, many
Yeah.
people have seen it, but there's still a long way to go. And I think collaborations like the ones that we are doing, Centro Escolar Mexico and Galen University together, that's the boost that we need,
Mhm.
or what that's the boost that Belize needs to create that vision and to empower those visionaries that will make this thing happen.
Okay. Well, if you thought that last question was tricky, I'm going to put you on the spot here, right? Because this could get into some areas, right? In terms of the way that our schools, secondary and primary schools, are preparing students for technical subjects, you know, we know that there are challenges. People always talk about the math and the English, right? But how do you feel about the way that, well, first of all, how do you feel about the preparation that the junior schools and high schools are doing for technical subjects? And do you think that they could do, well, how do you think they could do things, I guess, differently to prepare the students a little bit more effectively so that we don't see like a sudden jump in learning curve from like high school to what we do with them?
Yeah,
I
that's
realize that's a kind
yeah.
of on the spot kind of a question, right?
Yes, that's a great question. I've been in this profession for 15 years, and it's been an increment on cases like tertiary institutions have started to feel the gap uh, that requires more attention from primary school and secondary school levels, right? So critical thinking, problem solving, mathematical reasoning
Mm,
are areas that are needed to be addressed in early ages. Okay, so that transforms minds to be more analytical, and at this point in time, I think that is what we need. We have been taught in a way that we make the students solve an operation
mhm,
right as it is. 1 plus 1 is 2, right? So this is what we have been having or teaching primary and secondary students. And when they reach to the tertiary level, where we don't have that, but we have a real world scenario where they have to analyze a scenario, they have to put together mathematical analytical situations, they have to come up with things that they have to just imagine, they have to create a solution, right? It has been a problem. And there is one thing that I always say to my students too, and is that curiously I see like IT persons, right, not as problem solvers. I call them the problem seekers, right?
okay.
It's not that we are looking for problems, right? We are very calm people, but actually um, what we do is that we look for problems where nobody else sees problems, right? And we prepare or we create opportunities to enhance everyday task, and we transform it into something more efficient, faster, easier for
Mm,
persons. So we look for stuff, and we make start making things easier. So at the end of the day, to be able to look at those kind of things, you need to be analytical. You need to be a problem solver, right? So these are the things that we consider. I consider it is important that we can start early ages in primary school, trying to understand because sometimes if the kid doesn't make the operation, the mathematical operation as the teacher is teaching, it's wrong.
mhm,
And it's not so. Let the student solve the problem as they can, because what they are doing is that they are creating that cognitive linkage in their brains, right? Trying to perform much better, to understand, and going beyond what the teacher can teach, right? So that's
yeah.
that's that's a way in how I see it, and I would definitely would love to see that these new incoming students have that analytical, that problem solving, that reasoning, mathematical reasoning that we are lacking a little bit.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I like that phrase problem seekers because sometimes people don't realize there's a problem. or they don't realize that there's a better way they could be doing things, right? And so yeah, having that mind where you're sensitive to where improvements can be made, I love that. That's great, and I think that's definitely something we can encourage in students and encourage the schools to do that as well. That actually leads right into my next question I was going to ask you, because one of my interests is promoting STEM fields as a viable set of career options for Belizean students. And as you said, it has to begin young, because by the time they get to high school, they already kind of have an idea what they want to do with their lives. If they never thought about, well, I could be a scientist, I could be a programmer, I could be an engineer, right? Then I think it's harder to inspire the love in them once they get to the point where they're in our classrooms for sure, right? Um, what are some of your ideas maybe for promoting STEM fields among the really young students?
Well, that's a good question too, right? I think the creation of I don't know, some way that we can get students out there, like some kind of clubs that can reach out the communities, utilizing activities, experiments, demonstrations that can
Uh-huh.
change the generalized concept that science and mathematics are difficult.
Right.
Like the attention of these kids from very early, and guide them through experimenting, not being afraid of those things that are new. We have
Hmm.
uh, like taking the students the opportunity to experiment, showing kids that mathematics, science, technology is fun.
Yeah.
And that through that knowledge, we can take society places they can just imagine right now. Because there have been so many things, so many new things. And if you take a movie from the 90s and compare what we have today, you know that this technology has been just like
Just the
science.
special effects, yeah.
Yeah, science
Yeah.
fiction, and now we have many of the things that we have. I think we're missing the flying cars, but we're there,
Well,
right?
coming soon, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, totally. And I think you're right. I think that the attitude towards math, I think, is an issue that it propagates all the way up. You know, if the teachers are not comfortable with, or if they don't actively try to counter the stereotypes, I think that can rub off on them too, and I think it kind of cools them towards these more technical fields. And you hear the word technical, people equate that in their head. Oh, if technical, it means it's hard, right? And it's challenging. Obviously, you need to be precise, right? One little mistake can
Yeah.
throw a whole formula off. But when you
Yes.
see the joy of getting things right and just seeing how things hang together and work, the reward is definitely worth it, right? And so I
Definitely.
completely agree with that being a good focus. You mentioned clubs. Now, one of the things that Galen is trying to do is during COVID, we had like pure online classes. Like there was no face to face, there was no on campus activity. And so things like our computer science club, which was young at the time, kind of died away. I'm trying to revive that now. I'm trying to get a virtual club going so students, even those who don't come to campus, because a lot of them still don't, can still participate in a meaningful way with both on campus and off campus colleagues. And I would like to get some JC students involved in that even before they become Galen specific students, right? Um, I'm trying to think of some activities that they could do, some social events as well as technical and academic events as well. So I'm curious, what do you think some of those things could look like? How can we get our students involved, like collaborating together, cooperating together, across SEMJC and Galen together. Again, first of all, just smooth that transition, but then to benefit even the students who don't come to Galen. They can still get the experience of a college club and seeing how this is done. You have any thoughts about that, maybe?
Well, first of all, I want to start with saying, well, that's an amazing idea. That's an awesome idea to have clubs, right? COVID, the truth is that COVID really came and changed lots of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Different things. Before COVID, we had our programming club too. So definitely those things has been passed for a while. And the fact that you're starting your clubs right now, or your groups, that's an
pretty much
amazing.
just starting over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing idea. Involving students from different levels, that's awesome
Hmm.
idea too. Creating like huge clouds of brainstorming, I think that can catapult the level of the projects we have been seeing like that those ideas will be catapulted to a bright or better future, right?
Hmm.
There are areas that are like growing right now, that cannot we cannot escape from them. Some of those areas are like artificial intelligence,
Yep.
augmented reality, data analysis, and what about Internet of Things, just to mention some of the areas that
Hmm.
are very trendy
Yeah.
these days, right? So definitely areas like that, and having these students from the early junior college years working along with senior students in Galen, and start brainstorming about all of those things that can be done with these technologies that are trendy. I can just imagine the wonderful things that can happen.
Right. And it sounds like you have quite a bit of experience with hackathons and things like that as well. That'd be a great skill set to bring to the club. So maybe I'll ask you to be involved in what we do as well, because that sounds like you have a lot to bring to the table in regard to that.
That will be an honor.
You also mentioned AI. I'm not sure. I think I may mention this to you, but Galen is getting an AI and robotics lab donated to us, and so
Wow.
yeah, hopefully this year it will be set up and going. And so that opens up just a whole bunch of possibilities for things we can do, not only with the club but with the programs, with the schools. And just because it's going to be here at Central Farm doesn't mean it's going to be restricted from students who can maybe work with it virtually. I've seen labs where students program and control robots remotely. And so I think that there's some very good ideas that we can bring to bear with that. So we're definitely going to stay in touch about the developments in that. I'm not sure what equipment we're allowed to request. I mean, if it was up to me, and I'd be getting the most expensive stuff, right? But we have to work with budgets. That's just the reality of things.
Yes, yes, definitely, and that's on start, and that's a great opportunity for students to get the exposure to new technologies, right? And have special places where they can put all the ideas and make
Hmm.
them turn or come to life, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah. So speaking of AI, one of the hot topics these days is that a Chat GPT program that's all over the news, right? Um,
Yeah.
Again, we've been having a conversation about how to fit that into our educational paradigm. So not to fight it, but to kind of see if we can leverage it to give students these new skill sets that are developing while not losing the traditional skills that they need for whatever job they're going to apply, right? So kind of working with it against rather than against it. And that involves a bunch of things, how to not facilitate plagiarism, how to make sure we're getting the students to do the work and not to rely on the machines too much. What do you think about ChatGPT and how we can utilize that? First of all, just your general impressions of it, and then what we can do as educators to kind of not turn into the old folks telling the kids to get off the lawn, right?
Right. Well, Dr. Aguilera, this is hard for me because normally I would say that my way of thinking is that technology is a tool on the hands of the experts and not something that it's supposed to be replacing us, because there
Right.
is no way we can replace a human, right? But the reality is that at this point in time, we have to take our surfboard and just take the wave, because we can't let ourselves behind, and everybody's embracing the change.
Yeah.
Even Microsoft has been implementing some modules in ChatGPT in Office. That
Right.
was what I was reading, and there has been many browsers basing their searches on ChatGPT. The way in how it works, it's pretty amazing. The things that you can do, music, arts, lots of.
Yeah, I've heard some concerns about people in the animation industry are concerned they're going to lose their jobs because you can use AI to generate the backgrounds of a animated show, or just artists in general, saying, "Well, how are we going to sell our art when the computers can do it instead of us?"
Yes, definitely. And ChatGPT was just the start.
Yep.
There has been other artificial intelligence that are competing with ChatGPT, doing great, and has been embraced by other companies very well. It has been having a lot of acceptance. I understand that at a certain extent we shouldn't uh, just right jump into new technologies like just like
Completely
that.
agree.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that new technologies appears every day, but it shouldn't divert our attention to what we should be focusing on. But artificial intelligence is a monster, and it came to stay. And we are supposed, or we are kind of forced to embrace that technologies. Augmented reality, the way in how we will be teaching in the future, it's going to be completely different to the way that we have been doing right now. The
Yeah.
fact that they can have all the equipment, all the hands-on experience right in their headsets, and working directly with digital stuff. I mean, the opportunities and the possibilities are endless, and education is going to be transformed. Our jobs are going to be transformed. Our life is going to be transformed.
Right.
We have to prepare those professionals to embrace the technology and be an asset, not just the one that is going to be replaced, but how can we use that technology in our favor?
Yeah, it's true. We have to keep up with the changes. Like, for example, the way that I write my tests now, I assume they're going to be using the internet, right? I assume they're going to have a browser open, and I just write my tests, my questions with that in mind. So I'm trying to kind of saying, I'm not forcing you to memorize a bunch of things, but if you're going to use your sources, cite them, and I teach them how to use the technology properly. And now with AI, it's just kind of like the next step, right? So we had textbooks, then the internet, now AI, and you know, I have to be honest, it does make me feel a little bit uneasy as to how fast we're moving with it, but we can't let that stop us from, as you say, grabbing the surfboard, right, and just kind of going
Well,
with it
if
as
you
much as
can
we can.
ask ChatGPT to make a program from start to end, right? But just saying what you have to do and then
Right,
it's going to be done, it's definitely a concern, right?
right,
Again, it's going to be a very good tool, but at the end of the day, as educators, we have to find ways in how we can make the students use it more as a resource,
right,
because at the end they will be using it. So
right,
that should be a resource, and not the end of the day the thing that will be replacing what we are doing, right?
right. Definitely. All right. So one last question then. I think that this podcast represents a new way of communicating with the public about science, technology, education, all those things that we know and love. What would you like people to know about IT and computer science as a career, a field of study, a resource that Belize can use to continue its growth as a nation? You know, we're big on sustainable development at Galen. So, um, what do you want people to know about the field that we are invested so much in?
Well, um, computer science is the closest thing that we have to a superpower, right? So, creating things that we could just see in movies, as I mentioned before, helping people in areas like health, agriculture, business, science, getting loved ones get closer, those things can make science a rewarding career. Um, making people feel happy, facilitating knowledge. I mean, we have many things thanks to computer science. And what we are doing is that we are facilitating all of these benefits, all of these blessings to the society, because the way in how we use our time to explore, to investigate, to research, and make things run smoother. Technology as a sector can open many doors for a growing Belize, right? And as a nation, I think we should give it a chance, so that technology can be one of the biggest industries, generating more job opportunities, increasing the well-being of many families in Belize, bringing more investment based on technology, companies that can hire experts that we are building right now, that we're creating right now. Because just put it this way, we have been graduating many professionals lately, right?
Hmm.
And as a general, right? If you take some time to see how many graduates we get in all the six farms, in all the institutions every year, those add up to several hundreds, if not thousands of students. I think it is time for government, maybe if we can involve them,
Hmm.
to bring more investment, bring more companies, bring more big companies that can take advantage of the many blessings we have, like the fact that we can speak two languages, right? And that
Right.
we are in a very good time zone.
Yeah.
So that we have the capacity to create great professionals. I mean, we have that. We have that in our hands, and we have to use it. And definitely, technology is something that you don't really have to stick to something that happens internally. I mean, we can provide outsourcing to companies in the United States, in Europe, in Africa, in China, in South America. We can work from Belize, right?
Yeah, I get ads on Facebook all the time about US jobs in programming. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes,
Um,
so definitely there is a lot of reasons why people should consider taking computer science, information technology, and at this point in time, I consider this collaboration is basically the best opportunity for everyone that is interested in studying IT to come to Centro Escolar Mexico, study their associate's degree, and right away
Straight into it.
move to Galen University, get the degree, right, and then be very competitive. You don't really have to go outside of the country to get good education.
Right. Yeah, back in our day, we had to be elsewhere. I had to go to Florida for mine. It would have been much more convenient if I could do it here. And I love the way you put that. Computer science being the closest thing to a superpower. I've always told my students it's the closest thing to magic. So it's,
Right.
we're thinking along the same lines there.
Yes.
And that's great. So thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us and talking about this subject with me.
Right.
I see some great things. I'm excited about the collaboration we have. I'm looking forward to us growing our network together, working on building up the computer science club for all the networking opportunities it presents, and just I just think it's going to be a real good thing. So really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you for inviting. It was a pleasure.
and thank you so much for joining us for the general public. Please join us again next week for another episode. We air Thursdays at 4. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Goodbye.